The most misunderstood ability in Street Fighter 6 is definitely Drive Parry. This game came out 10.5 months ago, and in my opinion, we're still not using it to the best of our ability. And my hot take is that we're not punishing it as hard as we can. So let's go over the pros and cons of parry while clarifying some misinformations about it. To parry, we press medium punch and medium kick at the same time. And as long as we hold medium punch and medium kick, we'll be in a parry state. And while we're in this state, no attacks can hit us. The initial cost of parry is half a drive bar. But even though it costs us half a bar, every time that we successfully parry, we get some of that gauge back. In this situation here, if I block all of it, I lose about a drive gauge. And there's no space in between these attacks for me to attack. I can hold down drive parry and parry the rest of the attacks and save my drive gauge. Parry is a necessity to be able to hold onto your drive gauge and not burn out quickly. By parrying this, I don't gain any additional frame advantage. In fact, it would be the same as if I blocked. The difference is I just get some drive gauge back and I don't have to worry about highs and lows. That's one of the perks about drive parry, is that it blocks not only highs but also lows. There is no timing requirement for parry. As long as you hold down the button, you will guard that next attack. But if we can time our parry within 2 frames of it connecting, we get a perfect parry. And when we perfect parry, we recover instantly and can attack back. This is how we combat burnout. As long as we parry, we might lose half a bar, but we get that half a bar back when we parry a fireball. And if we perfect parry a fireball, we can attack it immediately. In my opinion, parry was added to this game to create more risk when going on the offensive. So parry covers strikes, fireballs, lows, overheads, jump-ins. What doesn't this do? Even though parry will cover all strikes, parry will not cover throw. The common answer to when you're knocked down is to go for the drive parry. There is risk to using parry on wake up because you can be thrown. So there's a mini game to this. If I see that my opponent wants to strike when they wake up, I can always use a melee attack to cover that option. If my opponent gets hit to this, they can use parry to stop my offense. The next escalation for that is once I see the parry, I start to throw him. Without parrying being an option, this offense here would be very strong against my opponent. When talking about drive parry, most people say it's okay to get thrown because the risk is worth the reward. But when you activate drive parry, you lose half a bar. And when you're thrown out of drive parry, you lose a full bar. On top of that, Ken lost 2,000 damage, which is 20% of his health, which is 1/5 of his health bar. So not only am I taking resources away from him, I'm also taking a big chunk of his health away as well. There's one more thing about drive parry that you might not know. Drive parry will be active for as long as you hold down parry, but there also is recovery. Jury held down parry for 30 frames, and if we see here, there's 29 frames of recovery. Jury's going to use parry and then mash throw. So if Jury blocks this next attack, she can tech a throw. Upon parrying successfully, you recover in 1 frame. But if you whiff the parry, you get punished. When you whiff a parry, you can still block right after. But while you're in recovery, you're locked out of using any attacks, which means you can't tech the throw. This is also important when they're in a corner. If they let go of parry, they're susceptible to a DI. If Jury parries and I DI, she can DI me right back. If she whiffs the throw, she's locked out of DI because she can't take action, which means this is now a free DI. It's common for Jury to go for a safe jump with this sequence while under Feng Shui Engine, but it can be drive parried. In Street Fighter 6, it's very important to understand what your opponent wants to do on defense. Because parry exists, you always have to be aware of it. In this case here, Jury whiffed her parry, so she's susceptible to drive impact. But it goes even deeper than that. As long as my opponent is holding parry, they can block any attack, highs or lows. And after they let go of parry, they can still block. There's no recovery on it since they successfully parried. And if they whiff parry, same thing applies. They can just block right after. When you whiff parry, a few things happen simultaneously. After you enter recovery frames, you're still able to block immediately. But since you whiffed it, you're locked out from taking any actions. But you still have to block high and low because the game will treat this as if you're not blocking at all. And since parry is not active, you technically are just blocking, and you have to block correctly. In this case, Jury is holding down back as soon as the parry is over, so she gets hit by the overhead. Instead, if Jury blocks high and she exits parry, she gets hit low. Even though she's in the parry recovery animation, it doesn't count as a parry. She still has to block. And Eagle Eye viewers would have seen this already. Since she's in the recovery frames, she gets hit with a punish counter because she's in recovery. What this means is that if we see our opponent whiff a parry, we have a few options. We can throw them. We can DI them. Most people hold down back when they're blocking, so going high is not a bad idea. And even though Juri's holding down back, she's stuck in a standing animation. And since she's stuck in a standing animation when she whiffs a parry, she can get hit by air attacks as well. So we can go for the guaranteed throw, or we can go for the mix and the bigger reward. And if they block the overhead, we're still safe. They can't punish that. In this situation here, we can't hit buttons in between those two attacks. We might want to try to use parry to try to get a perfect parry and turn the tide. Or we might be trying to protect our drive gauge by just getting a parry and holding on to some of our drive gauge. Even though we're using a 4-frame attack, the gap is too small to hit a button. However, that gap is still large enough to be able to do a 1-frame parry. But if there's no gap at all, it doesn't matter how many buttons we press, they won't come out in between. There is no space in between here at all. There's not even 1 frame for parry to come out. So even though I'm holding parry down in between these two attacks, parry will not activate. So parry won't activate here, and I'm forced to block. So what if I block high against this low attack, even though I'm holding parry? I get hit. This, in my opinion, is one of the most confusing situations when it comes to parry. I'm holding back, and I'm getting hit low, but my character is not walking backwards. They're still crouching. But I'm also holding parry, which should block all attacks. In fact, if I block parry at the beginning, I can hold back and it still parries. We see this situation often. Juri's Drive Rush Medium Punch offers us a lot of frame advantage. And if we do Drive Rush Medium Punch, Crouching Light Kick, there is no gap in between that. So the dummy is set to block everything, but only block high attacks. So Drive Rush, Medium Punch, Light Punch, there is no gap. So you don't see the parry come out until the very end. Same thing could be said for a Medium Punch, Medium Punch. There's no gap in between there. And Juri's going to parry as soon as they're done blocking. So if you're holding parry, even though parry blocks everything, highs and lows, if you don't leave a gap in your offense and don't give your opponent a chance to go into parry in between your offense, if they block standing, they're susceptible to lows. And just to make sure that there is no tomfoolery, I'm going to show you how this looks here. I'm holding back and parry, and even though parry should proc, I'm still not getting it and getting hit. Now, if I parried before the attack, it doesn't matter if they go high or low, I'm still going to be able to parry. But in this case here, parry never activates, and I get hit by a low attack. It's my opinion that this misunderstanding causes confusion when defending in Street Fighter 6. On defense, if you flash parry and it whiffs, you're still susceptible to high-low mix-up. And since you're in recovery, that could be a punish counter. We could take advantage of situations that usually would go unpunished. This is just a quick video going over what I know about parry. And I've done a lot of research on parry. I did a video on the parry bug that existed, which was patched out. And I did a video on how this game is not eating your inputs. And that video was based completely around parry drive rush. So I hope you learned something in this video, and I hope something inspired you to look more into parry. Parry is very misunderstood. And of course there's risks to doing parry, but for the most part, we just punish parry with throws. But the more we understand about the risks of parry, the more we can make people fear using parry on defense. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Tell your loved ones you love them, and I'll see you soon.